All right, welcome back to another episode of Phoenix Edge. This is an RPG and gaming news podcast. My name's Hat.
And I'm Eric.
And today we are back with video, and we are going to be talking about the Chrono Trigger final update that was released on Steam recently. Then we also have some new information regarding Dragon Quest XI. Eric is getting super pumped because this game is coming out next month.
Less than a month, folks. We're almost there.
He's having a hard time sleeping. He's, going through some serious stuff right now, so keep him in your prayers until this game comes out.
The shivers.
What's that?
Getting the shivers.
Yeah. Then we got more Final Fantasy 7 Remake news, kind of. We actually don't think it's news, but we see all over the place that there's tons of articles regarding this recent job posting. So we're going to talk about what is noteworthy, what is not noteworthy, if any of it's noteworthy. But before we get into that, Eric, what have you been playing this week?
I have been playing something I've gotten surprisingly addicted to. It's a game that's been out for about a year, but it just came out on the Switch. It's called, and I'm having a hard time pronouncing it, but I'll try my best. It's called Iconoclast.
Iconoclast.
Yes. And I kind of have it behind me right now but it's essentially a Metroidvania, but it also has like a surprisingly deep and pretty good story with it. You're essentially a mechanic in a very religious society that condemns the act of machinery and stuff like that, and they depend on a source called ivory to develop their civilization. So they're against your type of idea of evolution. That's the best way I put it. And you're being chased down by these people, and events just keep following. But it's a lot of your basic Metroid standard fare. But the great thing about this game is, one, it looks gorgeous, and two, the sprite animation is probably one of the best sprite animations I've ever seen in 2D gaming. I mean, it really looks downright gorgeous, the game aesthetically. And it feels good. It doesn't overwhelm you with a lot of concepts in its gameplay. It's very much like Metroid, where you get new items along the way and more stuff is open to you. It does feel a little linear at first, but when you get through the game, it starts feeling more and more open, kind of like a traditional Metroid game. And I mean, these type of games are my jam. So, I mean, I've just been having a blast playing with it. There hasn't been a dull moment yet. The pacing is just done really well, and the story itself is very interesting. And it can still be silly at the same time also. Your character is a silent protagonist, and it's funny seeing every time your character tries to talk or say something, she gets interrupted by one of the other supporting cast members. And it's just it's got a lot of fourth wall breaking also. There's this one particular part, there's one of the enemy sprites in the game is a soldier with a gun. And there's a part in the game where you trap the soldiers in a cage and someone's watching them, and you go and talk to the NPC guard watching them, and the guard says, "Oh, don't worry about them having guns in the cage. We made sure to take the ammo out." And I'm like, that's a little funny way to give an excuse not make a new animation sprite for these soldiers. Yeah, I mean, I'm just catching on to this game now that you're talking about it, but I was just playing some of the trailers for it, and it looks like a very quirky game for sure. Looks like a very fun atmosphere, a lot of really cool pixel art, crazy characters, cool animated scenes. But the more you're talking about this game, the more interesting I'm finding it. How much was it? Only $20.
And you just downloaded it?
Yeah, just downloaded it off the Switch eShop. I've already put 5 hours into it, and I don't think I'm anywhere near done yet.
Nice.
And one more cool thing is that you have characters that join you in a party. It's still your main character, but they join you and they have their own dialogue when you get to certain places, and sometimes you switch to them. When your character's stuck in something or the character gets separated, narrative wise, you control them and get through a certain part, then you join back with them. It's kind of random off and off how they do it, but 95% of the time you're your main character.
Gotcha. So, you're kind of splitting off a little bit, but for the most part, you have your essential main character that you go through.
Yeah.
Very cool.
What have you been playing?
Well, this week, I've primarily been going through, it's only been a little bit, but of the Chrono Trigger, because they finally had the final patch. So they've been doing that. But this week, I've been sick, and then I've been helping my cousin move, and they also own an antique shop. So I didn't realize we also had to move antiques from the antique shop. It's been that, and on top of working. So I've been doing that, but I have been playing some more Octopath, and then also the Chrono Trigger recent release. Did you decide to buy that yet? The Chrono Trigger?
I have not. Wait. What's your verdict so far, or what's your impression so far after getting it?
Yeah, I mean, thus far, like, it seems like it's much better than it was before. I mean, you don't have any of the Microsoft Visual Basic prompts. I'm using a controller to play the game. Graphically, I would prefer to have the opportunity to tweak things a little bit, but that's not really an option that you get with games off Steam usually. So I'm not going to like freak out about it. But I mean, all in all, it's a very good version of the game. I only wish they came out with this version from the get-go, honestly. But, 2 or 3 years from now, are we really going to be talking about it? I don't know, But, graphically, it looks great on my PC, and I think they've done a really good job. I mean, we can go over some of the stuff that they specifically said they did, but...
Yeah, I think we'll keep talking about it if Square Enix keeps, keep doing things like this, like making a half-ass port of a game that's already has everything you need.
Yeah, well, which they regularly do. But here's the latest updates that they did, and this is supposed to be the final patch, I believe. Yeah, Square Enix releases the final major update to Chrono Trigger, so they might do some minor patching, but nothing that's going to be crazy. But key binding function implemented, key binding functionality for gamepad, keyboard, and mouse controls has been implemented to improve the game controls. If you remember before with the original version of the game that they released, it had a lot of like stuff on there for like the mouse to click on because it was primarily made from like I think the phone version or something like that. So a lot of that's been taken away and it's primarily been updated to work well with your gamepad. It's got some updates with the keyboard. I don't know who's playing this game with the keyboard. That's ridiculous.
I mean, you can do it.
Yeah, I mean, if that's all you got, then sure. But to me, that would be really uncomfortable. But I used to do that back in the day when I was in high school and stuff. I would, play games with my keyboard. So
yeah, remember controlling Doom with your actual arrows?
Yeah,
keyboard.
Yeah, it's fun. Kind of.
Not today, but it was.
Yeah. Nice. I actually downloaded that game on my PlayStation. One version of it, and I was playing it the other day. So an extra section has been added. This has been added to the title menu. After completing the game, the following sections will be unlocked. Movies, illustrations, sound endings. Now, I haven't seen this because, I've obviously beaten the game before, but not with this new edition. But apparently there's going to be, like, you can see all the movie scenes from the game. There's illustrations, like, drawn out pictures of different scenes and stuff. I listen to the background music. I mean, this is all cool stuff. Not going to hate on them for putting it in there.
Yeah, but this is essentially what the PlayStation and DS versions already had.
Yeah, exactly. It's not anything crazy. You can view any of the endings that have been unlocked. This is all kind of cool. They said only endings that have been unlocked, viewed already, will be viewable, obviously. So that stuff's pretty cool, I guess, but it's nothing to get super excited about, but it's nothing to criticize them over either. And then they have adjustments to various features. So the item selection window has been changed to adapt its size to the actual number of items in the player's possession. That's good. Always like that kind of stuff. I didn't actually notice that. I just kind of played along, but that is a good addition. Movement settings have been re-implemented on the config screen. When set to dash, the default movement speed will be running, and hold down the cancel button while moving will make characters walk. The walk setting is the opposite config. Yeah, so this was the biggest thing. Like, anytime a game can do this type of stuff, like where the default is set to dash or run, I think that should just be the default for most RPGs. I hate when the default is walk and I have to hold the X button to run, you know?
Yeah, that's something that I always mess with all the time. They've been doing that all the way back to the PlayStation era, where you hold circle and you run, which I mean, they got the picture now. It's essentially they run and you hold circle to walk.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess it's a nice little addition, a bunch of quality of life stuff from this list.
Yeah, so it's just some more like little like dialogue box adjustments. And then they made a couple of bug fixes. So, for example, they said issues where the game would sometimes not boot correctly on PCs with specific graphic cards installed has been fixed. And issues where some graphics and effects would not display correctly at specific screen sizes has been fixed. It says several minor bugs have been fixed also, but those specific bug fixes, while not crazy, I mean, if you were having an issue, that would be a big deal, right? So I think that's pretty cool that they actually went through and kind of tailored the game to certain graphic cards where people that bought the game were having issues. And I mean, I should have recorded some of my gameplay, but the game does look really, really good. Now, there's a few things like I might adjust a little bit if I got to toy around with the settings. But all in all, man, like this is really good looking. I really like the way it looks. You can see the pixels on everything. It's not all smoothed out. And it looks really, really rich and vibrant. I really like it. So I definitely would recommend this version of the game now. And I think we should support, if this is important to you, I think we should support Square Enix in, you know, getting it right. Obviously, we want them to do it right the first time. But if they're not going to do it right the first time, at least go back and fix it. And then we'll buy it. Maybe eventually through trial and error, they'll figure things out and realize, well, maybe if we just do things correctly the first time, it'll work in our favor.
I guess the next time when they decide to bring a Super Nintendo game over to Steam, I guess we'll see if they truly learned their lesson, because I don't know, Square Enix seems to be mixed on whenever they learn from their past mistakes or not. And like I said, the results vary.
Now they just need to remake Secret of Mana again.
Oh my.
Yeah. So
I mean, that Secret of Mana remake wasn't the worst thing ever. I could tolerate like the 3D.
Yeah, but I don't think that was actually an improvement. Like, so
yeah, I mean, it didn't help. I mean, it ultimately didn't help, and it didn't look aesthetically pleasing.
You took fantastic looking pixel art and you made it like low budget cell phone.
Yeah, models. I'm just scared one day they'll do something like that to Terra Enigma. Please don't do that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Like, I don't see that game being remade anytime soon, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think that's a sleeper hit.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. Maybe they'll come out and surprise us. I was surprised to see Secret of Mana, so. But yeah, I mean, it's a good version of the game. I don't really have too many complaints at this point. I don't know if I'm really going to go through the game and beat it again, because I've beaten it a couple of times now. It's probably going to be something that I just have there that I kind of play every now and again when I just want to change the pace.
Whenever you get that Chrono Trigger itch.
Yeah, and kind of go through it some more, because anytime they re-release a game and they kind of like really put this much effort into it, even though it's the same game, it does feel like it's slightly different or a slightly new experience. I mean, you get that all the time, even when they remaster games, games you've already played a billion times. You put it in your PlayStation 4 and you're like, this is the same game, but they've changed a few things, and that's enough to get me excited. So, yeah, it's a good version of the game now, I think. So,
all right, that's good. I'm glad they at least fixed, and they admitted that they screwed up and they fixed it. Granted, I mean, the popular agreement between us is that it shouldn't have been like this in the first place, but now we're just in the present, just glad that they have something in there that's worth paying money for.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing is, like, we can always say, hey, like, they should have done this from the beginning, but there's nothing Square Enix can do about that at this point, right? There's nothing they can do to go back in time and try to fix that. All they can do is do their best now that it's already been released. And, you know, they've done good. I wish they would do this more with other games like we talked about, Final Fantasy VI for one. So they're doing the best they can. I mean, they have lots of games where I feel that way, where they've gone back and kind of fixed things a little bit. Final Fantasy 15, even Final Fantasy 14. Like, well, it would have been cool if 14 was what it is today on release date, but you know, at least they're going back and trying to fix things. So
yeah, I mean, I'll even put that argument in FF14 as much as I love that game. And it's like, I mean, it shouldn't have ended up like that to begin with, but ultimately I'm glad the events that happened. And like I said, like even with FF15, I'm like, it should have never been like that. But if that season 2 content comes out and it's the super radical royal edition comes out in like 2020 for it, and it actually makes it a good game, I'll acknowledge that FF15 in year 2020 was a great game, is a good game if it's a good game. Yep. And I'll just say back in 2016 that was not the case. Like, I can say for 14 now, in 2010 it was not a good game at all, and 2013 it was a good game.
Yeah. Well, with 15, until we get an episode Jared, off the table.
Yeah, I don't see me ever saying good if there is no episode Jared. Seriously, what happened to him and why do I care about him?
Yeah, why is this guy a big deal? So, I want more information regarding that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so yeah, props to Square for doing, at least correcting stuff. A lot of companies don't do that. They'll just release a garbage game and then they're like, well, that sucked. We're going to do something else now.
I mean, I hate the idea of boycotting in general. I want to, if a company does something good, I will praise them. If they do something wrong, I will let them know that they did something wrong. I'm never going to, like, even Konami, I'm never going to say I'll never buy a Konami game again. But if they release like one of their IPs out and it's good, I'm not going to say, oh, it's Konami, I can't buy it under moral code. No, I'm going to go buy it. They make something good, you buy it, you tell them they did good, and they'll continue doing good things.
Hopefully, yeah. So, I mean, well, where Square Enix now is in my book is they're kind of in that zone where, like, I'm interested, I'm going to follow their releases, but most of their releases I'm not going to buy opening day. Because they haven't built that trust with me anymore. But yeah, I see what you're saying. I'm not going to boycott it. If it's a good game, I want to buy it.
Yeah, I think it's ridiculous when people just straight out boycott something.
Yeah. So anyways, so that is kind of what Square Enix has been doing with the Chrono Trigger on Steam.
And what has been playing this week.
Mm-hmm. It's hey man, I could be playing worse. So, anyways, and yeah, of course, I've been playing some more Octopath Traveler. Not a whole lot. I'm not. I like the game. It's a good game, but man, I just don't like the way the story is going. It's still got some good moments and stuff, but I just wish it was more intertwined. So,
I mean, I'm the same way. I've been going a lot slower on it. And I know I should be doing more for an RPG podcast, but, you know, if the game isn't getting me interested enough to just keep constantly playing it, like I'm doing with Iconoclast over here, then there's something slightly wrong with it. I mean, I still think it's a good game. It's just some of the faults just kind of keep me, like, not feeling like I need to prioritize this game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if the way logistically the game is designed, if that was created with that, okay, if you're creating a game with that structure in mind, where you have these 8 unique paths, if it's going to be too difficult to tell a story and you're trying to go for a classic RPG experience, but if it's going to be too difficult to tell like a narrative that's going to like really tie it together, at least for most of the game, not like the last like hour or something, which I don't even know if that's the case, but I mean, if that's the way, then I mean, I think like they should have simplified the structure of it a little bit. So
now, and actually speaking of Octopath Traveler, they actually have hit over 1 million units.
Now that's good.
In the short time it's come out, which is very good, because that just shows Square Enix that they should be making more games like that and releasing more RPGs for the Switch. So with the success of Octopath Traveler, I can see now the Switch being a pretty like heavy place for Square Enix to focus on now, at least maybe on the classical side or getting some of their other RPGs imports in there. So I'm kind of excited to see what Square Enix will come up with now, or even to a lesser extent, other RPG companies, because they say, whoa, Octopath Traveler is doing fantastic on Switch. Like, I want to get my RPGs on there also.
Yeah, I mean, it's a popular platform. It's people get excited. Even if you release the same games, people will just be excited to be able to play it on the Switch, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know why they wouldn't capitalize on that. And although I do have some criticisms for Octopath Traveler, I still enjoyed it more than some of the Tokyo RPG Factory games. And on top of that, I do think that this is the correct path for Square Enix to continue going. I don't want them to go some new direction. I don't want them to go the Tokyo RPG Factory direction. I don't want them to try to make like 3D games or no, just do what Octopath Traveler did. You know, keep working with the same people, keep funding that, but try to, you know, improve it even more. Bring back the great combat system, bring back the great world, the great art direction, the great music. But let's work on the storytelling a little bit. And I think they'd have a real classic game there. So,
yeah, I mean, it's a good game. I just don't think it's the greatest game ever by far. But I'm very glad that it's successful. I'm very glad it got the success it did. And I heavily congratulate the team who made it. Like, awesome job, guys. I mean, I have my criticisms of it, but I think you guys have something good here. Definitely, and I do want to see more from your team. I mean, you guys made the Bravely Default games, which I thought were pretty great, and this game is pretty good on its own right. Also, I like Bravely Default a little more, but
yeah.
But I mean, this game is pretty great also. So I want to see more from you guys. I want to see Square Enix bring more to the Switch. I want to see more companies see now that these type of games are still very popular. And we don't need to make absolutely everything action oriented.
Yeah.
Which could bring us to our next subject.
Yeah, we could jump into that. That's a good transition.
Yeah. Like the Final Fantasy VII Remake that we're going to talk about again. Because there's news for it.
Yeah. So, let's see here. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Square Enix job posting says Final Fantasy VII Remake is an action game. So this is all over the internet right now. There's about 25 websites talking about this and how it's a big deal that there's this job posting and it's going to be remade as an action RPG, basically, in so many words. Now, that was big news to me like 2 years ago.
No, this has been news since 2015.
Yeah, I guess 3 years ago. But like, this isn't like who in their right mind, especially if you work for like a gaming website, thought this game was going to be turn-based still. I mean, I guess maybe they were thinking like it was going to have some like turn-based elements to it, or like it was going to be more command-based structured. But I mean, Nomura has done several interviews and Katase, where he said that, hey, this is going to be more action-based, and that's primarily because of the realistic nature of the game. Nomura said he thought it would look ridiculous if Cloud looked this real, and he was just standing there getting attacked, and then it would then it would be his turn to attack. He just thought that would look stupid. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I'm not absolutely against it being an action-based game either, other than the fact that it's combat or party-based, and I don't really like party-based combat as an action combat game. But
I mean, even the final. I mean, just to add one little comment to the turn-based thing is like even Final Fantasy 13 and 13-2 made turn-based combat look good. Like we can talk about how it was mechanically, but you can make turn-based very flashy and fast-looking. So I don't know if I really buy that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I see why they're going the more action route with the combat system. I think they just think that it's going to be more accessible to a greater audience. And I totally get that. I think they are right in that assessment. I mean, I think the game still would sell amazingly well if it was turn-based, if they just kind of updated the original system a little bit, maybe added some tweaks to it, made it a little faster, a little more flashy. But with that said, I mean, odds are they're going to get a lot of new players to play this game, given all the hype. And I mean, if you're 14 or 15 years old, you might not have ever even played a turn-based combat system. So maybe that's what they're looking at. Because I mean, they've said a couple of times that they can't really rely on us older gamers. I mean, I'm not like ancient, but I'll be 30 in January, right? I'm assuming sooner or later I'm going to get married. Sooner or later I'm going to have a couple of kids. I might not buy one of the Final Fantasies one of these days, you know? But it's just natural. The older you get, you're not going to be as much of a gamer as you are when you're younger, I suppose. So, I mean, I think they're trying to get some of that younger audience. And I can see why a turn-based system might kind of harm that target market, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't mind if it's turn-based or action. I mean, I like both genres, clearly.
If it's done well, yeah.
Yeah, if it's done well, then it's fine. The only question I would pose is that where is this belief, or where is this statistics that people heavily prefer action over like a turn-based type system? What I'm thinking is, if turn-based is starting to become boring for people, then shouldn't it be the responsibility of your company to find a way to make what you are known for into something better? Because like even Final Fantasy 13 made the ATV battle system like fast feeling, and it felt, you know, fun and engaging.
Yeah.
On a basic conceptual level, they're able to do this. And I don't see why something like that can't be further improved in a AAA title. I won't doubt that there are potential audience out there who probably prefer action out there, but I'm very sure there's still a large audience who likes the turn-based type of setup. Maybe you can meet the best of both worlds. I mean, maybe at least in FF16, where you meet turn-based and it has like some sort of action feel to it, like kind of in the middle type of deal.
I mean, if they really wanted to go this route, they could try to make both people happy and just further polish the Final Fantasy 12 system. But I know the major complaint for a lot of people with that system was some people felt like, especially if you over leveled, that it was kind of a hands-off affair because your gambits would be kind of useless because, you know, your characters would be so strong. But I mean, they could polish that up. They could tweak it. They could have like buttons you have to press with timing and stuff in the system to try to make it more hands-on. You know, techniques won't execute unless you press a button configuration, etc. And it would still be turn-based, but it would feel action-based, right? Or, I mean, there's lots of different things they could do, you know?
Yeah, and I say this as someone who really loved Final Fantasy 12 and its battle system and how creative it was. The one issue definitely with it, and we saw more of it in the Zodiac Age than the original game, is that the more options you give a player with a system like that, the easier it is to exploit it. And it makes the game entirely easy because of it. And I think that's one thing they probably realized with that game, or maybe not, because Zodiac Age sure as hell didn't address it.
Yeah, well, and the thing is with that game, and I didn't even realize this was an issue until like maybe 6 or 7 months before the Zodiac Age came out. But apparently a lot of people felt like the original version of that game was too difficult. And I didn't realize that was an issue, but I remember like I've posted in a couple different forums and stuff, an article where the developers of the Zodiac Age, they said they were rebalancing the game to make it easier. And I was like, what? I was kind of upset about that. And I was posting that in a couple of places. And I saw a lot of people say like, hey, I never beat Final Fantasy 12 because I just got stuck. I couldn't get past the boss. So they're like, I actually kind of like that. Like, and so, I mean, that game, like, the way that battle system's built, it has to be difficult, because if it's not difficult, if you don't have a lot of status ailments going on you, and like you're not required to buy specific armor to beat a boss and stuff like that. Like if you don't have that preparedness strategy level there, the game is like you don't do anything. You just let the game play itself. And to me, that's what happened with the Zodiac Age. That's kind of what happened, what you were talking about. But if they were to take a system like that, I think they could refine it further and use something similar to the 7 remake, because that's to me for like a action based system, that's the best way to handle party based combat, in my opinion. I haven't seen it done really better, because I didn't have to wait on somebody to heal me or ask why they're not reviving my character. They're doing exactly what I told them to do, you know? So
yeah, I absolutely love the strategic value of the game, and it really blended well together with the theming of that game.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. For FF7 Remake, I always keep imagining that the battle system is going to be like an evolved form of Crisis Core, actually. Because that game is a mixture of action with RPG elements. You run around, you equip certain materia on you, and you use the abilities with the materia you have on you. And it mixes in like with your melee strikes, depending on how you have it set up. And Crisis Core's battle system wasn't bad. It was a flawed combat system, but
it worked well for the PSP.
Yeah, it worked well for what it was on.
Yeah.
And I think if they evolve it to that, it's like action with a mix of RPG elements in it, which I think is pretty much what they're aiming for here, then I think it's probably something I can get behind. Like my beef with the fact that it's not turn-based is more on a logistics level or philosophical level than like an actual complaint about what they're actually doing.
Sure. I mean, I've seen in a few places that it's been speculated they might be going a more 15 route. And again, like I hate to like complain when I haven't even like seen what it's actually going to be or played it, because I don't know if that's officially been stated by anyone of note working on it, or if that's just speculation. But even if it was officially stated that it's going more of a Final Fantasy 15 route, they might drastically improve that system. And but my only issue with 15's system was, aside from not being able to use the other characters at the beginning of the game, was like magic was useless. And for me, Final Fantasy 7, if the magic system worked like 15's, I would be very upset, because materia is a big deal in 7. So if it has such a minor role like magic had in 15, I would be very, very disappointed.
I'm sure if they're making it like 15, they'll convert that party swap technology over. Mm-hmm. And it'll be between 3 characters probably again, if I had to guess.
Yeah, but I mean, if you remember, magic was pretty useless in that game, at least when I played it. And I saw a couple people that I know repeat that same sentiment, that when you cast magic, like you end up like hurting half your party. Like it's not very useful until like late in the game. I think you can get an item that'll make your characters like immune to fire or something like that. But it's just like, man, this is more of a pain than it's worth.
Yeah, but I mean, in 15's case, though, they really made magic off to be a big deal when you use it. Like you had to go to certain spots in the map to draw up magic to use it.
Yeah.
And you had to like craft it or whatnot and be able to use it. And it did a lot of damage when used properly. It's just, I mean, that's just how they approached it. Magic was something to like use like more sparingly. Yeah. Instead of like actual just use of it. Final Fantasy 7 Remake could easily remedy this by just having magic mixed into your combo list. Like Cloud can like swipe and do like a thunder, or do something crazy cool like put a thunder element on your blade mid combo, and then like use a thunder element damage to like attack them.
When you upgrade it and you have like Thundega, special move or something, or
like have Barrett with his gun arm, like have like blizzard like bullets and mix in stuff like that with materia. I hope that they come up with a cool combo concept system. If not, then I imagine Magic will work similar in that it's probably in a category similar to Kingdom Hearts, where you can like swipe around like a melee attacks and hold on to L or R and use a magic spell, or use something on your material list.
I think a lot of that stuff, well, I mean, initially what you were talking about, how they could implement it and it would be kind of cool, more in a combo type deal. That would be cool, but I'm thinking of things like white magic, curing people, casting various healing effects on people, haste. I mean, you know, they would still have to have some kind of command menu, which it looks like they're going to have. So I guess we'll have to see. It
would be cool if we were to talk about gambits where it's set up when you have the three characters out, when you're not controlling one of them, you have them set up a gambit system for their AIs. So they do specifically what you want them to, even though you're not directly controlling that character. That's always a problem. Like even with the Kingdom Hearts, like Goofy and Donald are most of the time like extremely dumb.
They'll just keep casting when you don't want them to.
Yeah,
and they won't do it when you want them to.
They always somehow get themselves killed. I'm sure a Kingdom Hearts fan will argue with me that I'm just not toggling the stuff well enough. But I mean, they die all the time, especially when I need them on harder modes, and even with them equipped and abilities on them. And I just wish there was like, I don't want Kingdom Hearts to get this complicated, of course, but you know, if there was like a gambit system where it's like, if this character's below 50% HP, use your cure spell on them, and like you can equip that on, say, Tifa.
So here's what they need to do. Square Enix, if you're watching, you need to take notes. All right, so they can have a gambit based system, but that's only going to be for like healing and stuff like that. But as far as like attacking and doing damage, that has to be inputted by you. So you can't just stand there and let your character attack like you could in Final Fantasy 12. Like that's only going to be initiated if you're pressing buttons. And then on combos, like you said, you know, maybe they'll have a button and all of a sudden you'll have like 3 seconds to press a triangle, square, circle, or X button, and you have magic materia set up for those buttons. And, you know, wherever it's leveled up at is what it's going to do. So if you press triangle, you'll do the third combo with like a Thundega or something like that. And then you could, I guess you'd have to have, you could have that for your party-based system as well. Like time just freezes and it comes up with a prompt menu. Dude, I'm telling you, that would be a good system. That's what they should do.
Yeah. I mean, the main thing I just hope is the AI is not so dumb that I have to feel like I have to manage them more instead of what I'm doing.
That's why they need a gambit-based system.
Yeah, or just make sure their AI is just so smart that you don't feel like you need to rely on them.
Hey man,
either way works.
Across 3 games, if the AI is going to do something retarded that I don't want it to do. So
yeah, I mean, I know in Resident Evil 5, if you play that single player, the scariest thing about that game is your AI partner trying to heal you, even though like you're pretty much full health. It's like, no, stop. Wasting my herbs. Like, yeah. No, don't get away from me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. Anyways, cool. Yeah, so we'll have to see. Hopefully, I'm pretty sure we'll get some more information, maybe a trailer or something like that. I feel like we're I feel like we're due, man, for another trailer at some point. I've been checking every day, almost.
We've been due for a trailer for 2 years now.
Hey, it's coming. It's got to come. I mean, I don't think it's going to be canceled, so we got to have another trailer coming out soon.
Oh no! I mean, I appreciate. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm sure that Square Enix appreciates having all their windows not broken, so they'll probably not cancel FF7 Remake.
Yeah, if they did that, I'm not sure what would happen, but
there would be riots in the street.
That would be very, very bad for Square Enix. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure some people would get fired. And Nomura would be not safe. So,
no, anyways, from what we've heard, he basically lives in there, so he should be okay.
Be like, well, didn't finish another game.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, so yeah, that's about the extent of it. I don't know why so many websites are like reporting that this is like big news, though, that it's more action based. I don't know if is that news to anyone that's listening. Did you not know that this is action based? I mean, we've seen a trailer. Obviously, that stuff is out of date now, but we've even seen a trailer where it's clearly more action based. So, I mean,
if I want to try to give them like a tiniest bit of excuse, and maybe they're just reaffirming that it's still an action-based game despite CyberConnect 2 being dropped, and they're now developing it, like despite the much feedback that people have given it, and people are split between it being action and turn-based. Maybe it's just like, hey, it's still action, nothing's changed.
Yeah. That's probably the most charitable interpretation of it, and that's probably what I'll go with too. Is just,
but they should have worded it better if that's the case.
Yeah, like Final Fantasy VII Remake is still action based.
Yeah,
yeah. Anyways, so that's Final Fantasy VII Remake news. I hope you all enjoyed it, but we have another topic. And Eric, you want to fill us in on that topic?
Recently, we're reading from an article on RPGsite.net, and the topic of it is called "Square Enix shares character trailer for Dragon Quest XI alongside commentary from Yuji Horii." And they've pretty much given the names of the characters in their Western release, and a couple of them have changed. Like, I'm looking through this, and the character Jade, who is quote unquote the noble martial artist, is
so noble.
Yeah. And her name in Japan is actually Martina. But they did say beforehand that they were changing names to better fit like where they come from in the game. Like the character Eric is based off of the Scandinavian like culture. And I'm trying to remember what his original name was, but the reason they changed it is basically to make it make more sense for people in the West. So like, oh yeah, Eric definitely sounds like a Scandinavian name, but like apparently the original name doesn't come off like that. So they wanted to make sure that the characters relate as much as possible. So they essentially did some name changes to them, which is fine. I mean, they do this all the time to the West. I don't know if people know this or not, but I mean, they change names all the time. Like we had in Final Fantasy VI, her original name is Tina, but Tina sounds like a majestic name in Japan. Yeah. So, but it's a normal name here in America. So what they did is they changed it to Terra to give back that majestic feeling in the name. And of course, then we get times in Japan in Final Fantasy V, the character's name is Butts. And we know what Butts is interpreted as here in the West. Yeah. So it was changed to Bart's to, obviously to not let that joke run too far in America. We all know what his real name is, but I mean, we'll call him Bart's to humor, the humor square.
I did the Japanese fan translation version of the game first, and it was Butts. So,
yeah, this article essentially has. We can post the link definitely in the description below, so you guys can read it all. Because I don't think we're going to read it all, but we're going through this, and we can give you like a small rundown of at least like the hero of the that they call the Luminary. Of course, you named the character who you want him to be named, but like as a way to describe him, they call him the Luminary, and
call him that. Yeah,
yeah, and the inspiration for him. From him says, since this is the 11th mainline title in the series and we're planning to go back to the roots, I wanted the main character to be a classic kind of hero or what we call luminary in this game. I also wanted to create a sense of unpredictability. So here the main character is informed that he is the luminary and heads to the castle, only to be caught and thrown in the dungeon. The main character is the luminary, but who exactly is he? His story progresses with that question in mind. And they comment on the hero and say your favorite part of his design, and he says, "I like the luminary's silky locks." Oh boy. I think he's a rather surprising protagonist, and in a sense he could even be the most attractive main character from the series with his silky locks and youthful looks.
This is Yuji Horii saying this?
Yes, I'm not exactly sure about that. I mean, maybe in Japan that's a welcomed look, but
he really likes silky locks, apparently.
I've not really seen anyone here pull off that hairstyle and look really good.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm trying to think.
I mean, the character looks cool, to be sure, but design-wise, I don't think he's my favorite from the series. I mean, 5, I really like the design in 5 and 8, and or like even 4. I mean, pretty much a lot of them I like, but I think like favorites wise, I like the 3, because what I liked about it, even though the designs look similar, I like that they had like kind of a blank slate kind of look to them, so you could better reflect yourself onto the character. And this one, it looks like the narration of the story and world itself is taking over the main character more. So it's a little harder to reflect myself on him, but it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Like it's still a cool looking character, and I'm sure a lot of his actions are going to be like based on your choice, and they're going to make you feel relatable that way. But I'm just speaking purely from an aesthetic type of deal here. But I think he looks cool. Just, you know, he doesn't have that relatable blank slate feel that the other characters have.
Yeah, I mean, I don't particularly mind the way he looks at all. I mean, I'm not going to compare him to all these other games, but yeah, I mean, I think I like the way he looks. I mean, I think he's cool. I think the fact that he has that sword on his back, it's kind of like a cool, iconic look. A lot of big RPGs have a character that kind of, you know, has an iconic sword with them. And I mean, I think it's a good design. I mean, as far as these silky locks go, I mean, hey, that's Yuji Horii's thing. I mean, more power to him. So
yeah. And he describes the main character's personality. He says Dragon Quest protagonists typically don't have a strong personality. Reason being is that it is determined that the main character should first and foremost be the player. As I was just talking about earlier, actually. To make sure the player can identify with the hero, we intentionally make him quite normal or quite orthodox so he doesn't act in a way that the player definitely wouldn't. We strive to create the protagonist so that it'll be easier for players to feel that they are the main character. In that respect, ultimately, I want people to have their own vision and depiction of the protagonist and project themselves onto the character. So it's pretty much your standard fare in Dragon Quest. That's usually how they go about the main character. I would imagine this will be very similar to Dragon Quest VIII in that way, because the main character is essentially that. Like you still project yourself onto him more than he expresses himself, and I think it worked very well in that game. So if it's anything like that, then I think it should be A-okay.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this game. It's coming out, September 4th?
Yes, September 4th.
Yeah, so I think this is going to be a really good release for this year. And I'm excited for it. I definitely know it's going to be a long game. From what I'm seeing, at least maybe around 80 hours or so. I'm expecting to get through it.
Yeah. They said this game is definitely one of the longer ones. It's longer than Dragon Quest VIII. I don't think it's as long as 7, but it's longer than 8.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. There's supposed to be a strong focus and emphasis on the story, which is something I always enjoy in RPGs. And I think something that's kind of honestly missing these days with a lot of RPGs is just the story. So I think it's going to have a real good one. And everything I'm seeing from this game is very positive. It got very good reviews in Japan. It came out, last year already in Japan?
Yeah, about roughly.
Yeah. So, it got great reviews there. So I imagine it's also going to get great reviews here. As far as the name changes, though, that's fine. As long as they're not changing plot points, like in the past, some RPGs would kind of tone certain scenes down if they were worried that it might offend some of, especially America, our Christian values, right? Apparently, we're all raging Christians here. So nothing wrong with that, but not all of us are like that over here. But
sometimes, I'm sorry, what are you going to say?
Well, I was going to say some scenes they've toned down. I know some of the old Final Fantasy games, they've changed some of the spell names and stuff to not have such a religious connotation. Other times, I think certain games have actually removed scenes or kind of rescripted scenes to make them less religious based. But what were you going to say?
I might be a little controversial saying this, but sometimes the change is for the better. And the controversial one I think of is Eris. And I still to this day believe that it's better to say Eris, Aeris, than Aerith. Like the N sounds way too strong in Aerith. And when you do Aerith, and Eris sounds like it rolls off the tongue so much better.
Yeah, well, I definitely prefer Eris over Aerith because I don't know. I just don't like making that sound with my tongue. That's probably a petty reason, but I know I see what you're saying. Some of the changes, it's for the better, and there's probably a lot more thought into it than that. But I'm just pointing out that it doesn't appear like they're making any huge changes here. For us, they're just making minor changes that might give the experience a little better polish, but they're not treating us like we're children. I know even with games like Final Fantasy 12 in Japan, they actually had a scene removed that we got. So the whole deal with Penelo being kidnapped, spoiler alert, but it's not really relevant to the plot at all. But anyways, with her getting kidnapped, apparently in the original Japanese release, that scene was not in there because Japan had this huge deal with some famous girl being kidnapped, and it was all in the news, and Square was worried that would actually hurt the sales of the game or they would get negative reviews because of that scene. So that whole story segment is actually removed from the game in the original Japanese release. So, it happens all over the place. But what I'm trying to say is with this game, I don't see anything that's so far that I've heard that's anything along that line. So, name changes, like you said, it's just these names come across a little bit better here or more the way they want it to come across here. So, all the changes really just make sense to me. They added voice acting. The original Japanese release did not have voice acting. That, again, was just another decision because in the West, we like our voice acting. We don't like to read as much. So I don't mind it, but I know a lot of people don't like it. So that's what it is.
Everything that's been brought to the West for this game, the changes have been either very minimal or the additions have been welcomed by people. People obviously have welcomed the voice acting for the game. Mm-hmm. It's something they really liked in 8 and glad it returned to 11. And I believe they mentioned there's an option to turn voice acting off. So if you really want the Japanese traditional experience, you can turn it off and not pay mind to the voice acting. But something as minimal as name changing is not going to affect anything in the story at all, unless their name literally corresponds with something integral in the game itself, which I highly doubt that being the case.
Yeah. I didn't like how, I guess this wasn't a name change, but I didn't like the change from what I saw as Titus to Titus just because that the trailer pronounced it wrong. But
that's more of a pronunciation issue than a character name.
Yeah, it's not. I guess they didn't really change the name. Yeah,
there's still a lot of like controversy and mystery behind that. So like, what James Arnold Taylor said about that was basically when they were like given the scripts, and someone correct me if I'm wrong. This is just what I remember hearing on his YouTube channel, and he was given the script, and when they were reading out, they said the name Titus and not Titus.
Well, I know that from what I heard was they had a script for a trailer for the game to be released in the West, and the narrator in the West read it as Titus, and they didn't catch it, and it went on like television, and then like Square was like, well, I guess it's Titus. Actually,
you know, a really funny thing. Mobius Final Fantasy, the free-to-play mobile game. Actually, I checked out the cutscene on YouTube, and there's an event where Titus, where after the ending of Final Fantasy X, the next place Titus actually went to was that game, Palamecia. And the main character asks him his name, and it's not like a memory issue or anything he has. He's like, oh, I don't know my name actually. And like, and he's like, whenever I'm around people, they just call me, hey, you, or kid. Like, I'm not joking. Look this up on YouTube. It's a funny scene. And your main character picks up the ball, his blitz ball, and it says, I think your name's on here. And he says for the first time, James Arnold Taylor, you know, at least in the context of that character, he says, Titus. Now, I'm disappointed he still said Titus, but, you know, you kind of, like, that's the first time, like, the character himself, not like an alternate version of him, has acknowledged his actual name.
Well, yeah, it's kind of crazy though. That's funny you brought that up, but to me, it's like obviously Titus. I mean, the whole planet is water based. He plays a sport in the water. The tide goes out and comes back in. I thought for sure, you know, that would make perfect sense, but apparently no. That's Titus.
Yeah, I guess that ship sailed almost 20 years ago. So
you know, some things never get old.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure 15 years from now, I'll still be talking about episode Jared. So,
yeah. I mean, check out that video. I mean, just type in like Mobius Final Fantasy Titus, and I'm sure someone already has the cutscenes pulled up on it. So just watch them. They're actually pretty entertaining for what they are.
Very cool. Yeah, check that out. I'm going to check it out too eventually here once we're done with this podcast. I just want to get to these comments though.
Looks like we only got a few this week.
Yeah, it's all good. All right, so we got 3 comments here. Let's get to it. I'm going to pull the window up here. So Leanne B, she says at 5420, I guess we assumed her gender. So she said, how dare you assume my gender? I've never been more triggered. LOL, I'm messing with you. Keep up the amazing work, guys. Also, do some more collab like you did with Dark Pixel Gaming so you can get more exposure. A collab video or podcast featuring JRPG would be amazing. Well, we're always down to do stuff with other channels.
Yeah, we're open to doing collaboration events for anyone who'll have us.
Yeah, well, definitely. If anybody out there is listening to this and you have a YouTube channel and you would like to do something of that nature, just leave a comment and we'll get back with you, or you can tweet at us, and I try to check that as often as I can, and we'll definitely work something out. But Leanne, thank you for the comment and the idea. We really appreciate it. And I'm still going to assume you're a girl. So until you tell me otherwise.
Everyone to me on here is genderless till they say otherwise. Yeah.
Well, BioPhoenix, you have a little bit of a goatee. I've seen your videos, so I'm assuming you're a guy here. BioPhoenix, he says, I still have not taken my Switch out in public because I keep thinking something is going to happen, and I really don't want to replace it if I don't have to. I think he's talking about how I said I took it on the plane. Interesting that you had a Neo Geo Pocket. I've played a few games on it, and it has a lot of good stuff. In regards to that, how many games, now he brought that up, how many games did you have on the Neo Geo when you bought it back in the day? You know?
He's talking about me?
No, I mean, I'm adding some commentary on myself.
Oh,
but it just made me think of that. Because when I think about my Neo Geo Pocket Color, I think I've only had like 4 or 5 games on it. I had a SNK fighting game. I had a Metal Slug game. I had a Sonic game. What else did I have?
I have 7.
Okay, Eric had 7.
Just counted.
Every game I played, I liked though. So
I know Sonic and Metal Slug are up there. I don't remember the other ones.
Yeah, I think those are the big ones. There was also a really good strategy RPG on there that I never got that I always wanted from the I think the same people that made Shadow Hearts. But anyways, that's beside the point. They said Arc the Lad is another series I still need to play. I do like the look of them, and I do have them. Kind of sad this new one is a mobile game, but I suppose it to start since it's been a very long, I think he says means time. Yeah. I haven't heard any more information with the mobile version, but go ahead, Eric.
It keeps going back and forth in my head. I'm like, it's a new Arc the Lad game, but it's a gacha. But it's a new Arc the Lad game, but it's gacha. I'm like, oh man, why are these type of games just keep messing with my emotions? I know this type of system isn't great, and I complained about. We had a whole episode complaining about it, but it's like, but they put a beloved franchise or like an actual canon story that takes place after that I want to play. So I'm like, I'll just deal with the gacha elements and hope that the story is just worth going through.
Yeah, sometimes when they do this, I feel like all they did was they took like a popular franchise and then they just like put that on the cover, like the wrapper. They try to sell the same game, but it seems like we've gone through a couple of these games where they've kind of put some unique features into it and kind of tried to make it as authentic as possible. So
yeah, I feel like I'm part of the problem sometimes when I preach about how these free to play type of games are just, something that, they shouldn't be doing. And then here I am playing them the next day.
Yeah, but you're not buying anything. So I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I'm not buying anything, but I'm still playing them and downloading it and letting their advertisements go around.
Making money off it.
Yeah, I'm contributing to it in a way. So,
well, if they want to have a game where it's free to download, but it's going to have advertisements, but it's going to be a regular game, like a typical, not a standard free to play game, but like a regular game that you're not bombarded with trying to buy stuff.
Sega does that.
Yeah, that's fine. And if you want to like pay extra money not to have the advertisement, which I would do,
I'm okay with that. Sega just has a crappy UI for it. Like I bought Phantasy Star 2 on there like years ago before they started this thing. And they've updated every one of their games now to with the structure I just talked about. Like it's free, but with ads, or you can pay for it and play it. And they said that if you've already purchased the game, all you got to do is hit the restore purchase button. And that's what I tried to do, and they can't detect that I purchased it. So I'm like, well, out of a sense of moral code here, I cannot purchase this game again. If they want to steal my money like that, then I'm not buying it again.
Well, yeah, it's got to be implemented correctly. They can't have moronic things like that, where you've bought in the game and it can't detect that you bought the game. That's obviously stupid.
Yeah, and on top of that, the UI is pretty bad. I don't recommend buying games from Sega right now on the mobile. It's they're free to play, or like their ad thing is it just feels so terrible to play on.
Yeah. So anyways though, BioPhoenix goes on to say, I also remember hearing about people trying to emulate the PS3 version of Persona 5, and I don't recall Atlas doing much about it. That's something that I forgot to bring up, not specifically Persona 5. I'm glad you brought that example up, but emulating PS3 games, apparently that's a thing. I've just assumed that, most people's computers, 95% of people's computers are not capable of running most PS3 games at a quality that would be enjoyable.
I think the biggest issue with emulating PS3 is that convoluted processor that's in it. Like, if they found a way to properly emulate that processing, now that's cool. But I'm more interested. I mean, if anyone has info about it, please share me the link. I would love to see that, like how they've gotten the process, like how they're able to emulate the processing of the PS3 to work on a PC, because that's what I'm more interested in. Is how they're able to do that, get any PS3 game up and going on a emulator.
Yeah, that's gonna be a task, but I'm assuming like some people are really into this type of stuff, and like that's their hobby of just tweaking stuff and getting games to emulate properly, and you know they can go brag about their computer and how well it runs and everything like that. So, but I do agree from if you want to expand upon a previous topic was, you know, I think it was Dude McGuy who asked, you know, when do you draw the line of what is currently being sold? I mean, if people emulate that, is it okay? And I mean, that's really paraphrasing. I think his point was, you know, older games are being sold now too. But yeah, man, if you're emulating Persona 5 and you didn't buy the game, I mean, I'm not going to like chastise you, but I mean, to me, like, I wouldn't do that. You know, that's a new game. So, but yeah, Atlas didn't do anything about it. I think his main point here is just that, you know, Nintendo with the $100 million lawsuit, you know, and the way Atlas is towards their content, they didn't do anything about Persona 5 being emulated. That is a good point too, because they're kind of aggressive with their stuff. But
I will say, when Persona 5 first came out, they were very strict about what you could share on the PS4 with it. Like, they didn't want to show, right? They wouldn't show cutscenes, and the only thing they wouldn't let you share with another person, and the only thing they would let you see is gameplay, not cutscenes. I think they changed that so you can, like, after people kind of got up on them about it, but that's the way they were intentionally. So I think as a company, they don't like seeing their products being shared around with other people by someone who's not them. So, I mean, I'm not exactly sure what their stance is on this in particular. Just saying they've had a history of trying to block people who have not purchased their game away.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they've done some aggressive moves in the past, but even Atlas has not gone and tried to sue websites. So
yet.
So maybe they just need a few more games. Anyways, then we have Kingdom Geekdom. Always a good name. Speaking of emulation, helping Nintendo, I know multiple people who have hacked their SNES Mini, even my one friend who is not savvy at all with technology, meaning it is very easy to do. I'm sure people who are frugal gamers would be more likely to drop the $80 or more knowing it comes with the entire SNES catalog instead of just 20 or 30 games. I agree with this entirely. That's my big thing with the SNES Mini. I mean, obviously they can't, I know what you're trying to say, Kingdom Geekdom. You're just talking in a general sense. Obviously you don't mean, you know, them having the entire catalog, because obviously Nintendo would have some, I would assume, licensing issues with a lot of different games.
I would argue that you can just go buy a Raspberry Pi that's cheaper and put more than just Super Nintendo on there. Like, the Raspberry Pi is powerful enough to play pretty much anything that came from the 90s, except, well, of course, Sega Saturn.
I mean, but I think he's talking like to make it like really accessible and easy. Like, you know, you just buy it and plug it into your TV. You don't have to do anything else.
Well, that's what a Raspberry Pi is. You just plug it into your TV. And if you're taking time to hack your SNES Mini, then you obviously have the patience and time to make a Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. But I mean, he's saying like, okay, his friend hacked the SNES Mini, so it's very easy to do. But I think he's saying that like more people would buy the SNES Mini if it just came with the entire catalog instead of having to hack it, you know?
Yeah, but the thing is, Nintendo finds value in each of their individual properties, which is the argument I made before, that they need to know what the value of their product is. I can understand that something like Super Metroid being $5 to $8. That is a timeless game. Like, you definitely get more than your money's worth playing that, despite it being an older title. But then you get something like Balloon Fighter, which is like something that like takes up just like it's a few minute thing that you play, and that shouldn't be more than $1.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that's the biggest thing too, is how would they price the SNES Mini if it had all that stuff on there? What they should have done, and I know I don't have an SNES Mini, but I mean, if they could have like an online store that the SNES Mini could like hook up to, and you could just buy additional games for the SNES Mini.
I think they're doing something similar with the Switch with the upcoming Virtual Console. I think it's going to be a subscription service, and you'll be able to like stream or download the title onto it. As long as you have the subscription, then you are allowed to play it, which I think would be a great idea. Like, you pay maybe, I don't even know how much, let's just say let's say $10 a month just for the hell of it, just for example's sake. Like, I would do that if I knew they were bringing in titles regularly. Like, that's better than paying $8 to $10 for like each title that they come out with.
Sure.
Especially if you frequent in there often.
Yeah. I mean, I think that would be, they should do that with the Switch. But I mean, if they could have done, I mean, I think to his point, if they would have done something similar on the SNES Mini, I mean, that's a little more accessible, $80. As cool as the Switch is, I mean, for a lot of people, especially if you don't play games that often, you know, $300 for a Switch is a little much right now.
Maybe they could do something where they had like an online feature on the SNES where you could download like a DLC pack 2, which has these games in it.
So they sell like a package of games, not just one. So
yeah, and you put it on the same console, and it's like a certain price. I'm not saying I would agree with that model, but I'm just saying that's like a possible thing they could have done.
I would have agreed with that. I mean, if it was like, I don't know what you would price it at for an additional, let's say 20 games. I mean, if it was like, honestly, if it's an extra 20 games and it's 20 good games for the most part, I mean, they could have priced that at like $40 or $50, you know?
Yeah, maybe, or sell them individually.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think Nintendo's pretty happy with their SNES Mini sales though. But I do see what you're saying though. They could have capitalized on that a lot more and got a lot more other sales out of that. Especially given it was a hot Christmas item and everything like that. But hopefully we get some more information from Nintendo and we can have something similar on the Switch.
Yeah, the thing is with the products also, the original intent was not to be as popular as they are. They were originally aiming for people that were like in their older ages and they want to just relive some of the classics. Like, they weren't aiming for people necessarily like yourself and me. Like, we're the ones who are always buying stuff on their Virtual Console, you know? So they're more aiming towards for people who are like maybe like in their 40s and 50s now, and they remember playing Nintendo and Super Nintendo at the time. I think the mindset has changed, but that was their original intent. It wasn't supposed to be as popular as it was. That's why the NES sold out. Like, that's why it took so long to get more NES ones back in stock, because they just thought it was just going to be some little novelty item for Christmas, and it just went crazy.
Yeah, it sounds like Nintendo does that a lot. It's suspicious.
That happened with the Wii, but I mean, to be fair,
with the Switch also. Then they run out of stock for a while.
Well, they quickly got their stock back in. You can find a Switch anywhere now. Like, I just went to the store the other day and there was a few Switches in there. So they're not hard to find anymore. But the Wii, they gravely underestimated how popular that console was.
I think they do it on purpose, to be honest, because it keeps the demand high, because all this hysteria is going to go around.
For how many times it's happened, you start thinking that it might actually be Nintendo's play. I don't know if it actually is, but I don't think it is, but it sure as hell looks like it.
Hey man, I wouldn't be surprised. They do some crazy stuff sometimes. So
Yeah, no doubt about that.
Yeah. But anyways, you got any final thoughts?
No, not really. More I was just saying, like, if you really want to emulate stuff and put it on a small box, then Raspberry Pi is probably the better route to go.
Or the Atari VCS.
Or maybe. Who knows?
We'll have to see. But anyways, that's a whole another topic for another episode. I'm sure we'll cover it at some point. But that wraps up this podcast episode. I hope you all enjoyed it. We do have a link in the description for you to get the audio-only version. I think I was actually late with that this past week. I apologize about that. But in general, that link is always there with the audio version, so you can listen on your PlayStation 4, on Spotify, or in the car, or while you're working out, or whatever you want to do, exercising. You can listen to us talk about RPGs and video games, and just right off your phone. And it's, some people like it. It's a little more convenient. I listen to various podcasts that way at work, so good way to kill the time. And that link will be down in the description. And also, please subscribe on YouTube. We really appreciate that, seeing our subscriber count grow. We're currently at, I think, what? 346.
Oh, cool.
So we're hoping, at least I'm hoping, to get that up to 1,000 soon. So
tell your friends.
If you're regularly watching us or listening to us and you're not subscribed, maybe you just catch our video when it comes up on the suggested stuff and the topics. Please hit the subscription button and let's help grow that out a little bit. So
tell our YouTube overlords that we're legit.
Yeah. Well, somebody needs to tell YouTube something, because they've been doing some weird stuff with our views, freezing our accounts and stuff for like days on end until they can be verified. And I don't know. But anyways, all that is nonsense, and you guys don't need to know about that. But we'll catch you all next week with some more exciting topics. Until then, check it out later.
Take care.
Easy, guys.